Tragedy in the skies over Washington, D.C. as an Army Black Hawk helicopter collides with a passenger jet, killing everyone on both aircraft. Donald Trump just spoke with reporters and used this as an example of why we need to strive for excellence over everything else when we're hiring people for these critical positions in the federal government. And the reporters seem to take issue with that notion. You're going to see every little moment of it coming up next. Plus, Kash Patel takes it to a senator from Minnesota who dares to suggest that Kash Patel doesn't love law enforcement and doesn't love our country. Kash explains to her otherwise. Also, this tragedy that we just experienced, most normal people would mourn for those individuals who perished in this horrible crash. But if you're a liberal, you use it as a weapon against Donald Trump and blame him for what happened. We'll show you all of the disgraceful things the left said mere moments after the crash last night. All of that is coming up, plus a brand new feature film that we are very excited about, and we interview the director of it. It's called Valiant One. That's coming up right now. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Thank you for watching our live stream today. Thank you for tuning in here on a very busy morning in your nation's capital and in the United States of America. We've been gathering all the best clips and information, starting from last night's air tragedy all the way through literally moments ago when the president was in the briefing room with reporters to talk about his administration's response to the crash. Thank you for watching our stream. Thank you for subscribing and liking our video as well. As we reflect on the horrible events in Washington, D.C. that occurred at 9 p.m. last night, I want everyone involved with this, all Americans, to know that over here on this program and at Town Hall Media writ large, you're not going to hear thoughts and prayers from us. Thoughts and prayers are thoughts and prayers. No. How about just prayers? How about prayers? I'm not sure what the thoughts do. Don't know why we've been throwing the thoughts in there recently. I think for those who don't pray, okay. That's fine. Sorry if it offends you that we pray. But until you explain what the thoughts actually accomplish, we'll just stick with our prayers. And you are all in our prayers. Everyone connected with this tragedy, you are in our prayers, and our hearts go out to you. And we can't imagine what you're experiencing right now. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, not even 2 weeks into his term, took to the podium of the briefing room today, something that rarely happened during the last administration. He spoke directly to reporters and, of course, directly to the American people. And he began explaining the events, explaining his administration's response, and offering his condolences.
I speak to you this morning in an hour of anguish for our nation. Just before 9 p.m. last night, an American Airlines regional jet carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter carrying 3 military service members over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., while on final approach to Reagan National Airport. Both aircraft crashed instantly and were immediately submerged into the icy waters of the Potomac. Real tragedy. The massive search and rescue mission was underway throughout the night, leveraging every asset at our disposal. And I have to say, the local, state, federal, military, including the United States Coast Guard in particular, they've done a phenomenal job. So quick, so fast. It was mobilized immediately. The work has now shifted to a recovery mission. Sadly, there are no survivors. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly. And we are a country of we are in mourning. This is really shaken a lot of people, including people, very sadly, from other nations who were on the flight.
Now, I want you to know that, as you know, I'm a morning radio host in Washington, D.C. I've been doing this job on talk radio in the nation's capital for, I'm into my 13th year on this job. And I can tell you that over the last several years, we have reported on multiple near misses at this very airport, one of the busiest runways in the country. The Washington Reagan Airport has gone through huge expansion, adding multiple flights, and yet at the same time, we have multiple military flights. Fort Belvoir, which is where this Army helicopter originated on, is near Mount Vernon, just about 10 miles south of the airport. The Pentagon is right next door to the airport. Langley, the CIA headquarters, are just right up the Potomac from the airport. And there's constant exercises, constant military training. People say this is a training mission, but that doesn't mean that these are trainee pilots. You could have 20 years under your belt as a pilot on one of these helicopters, but you still go on training missions. You're constantly going through the routine of what you have to do in case there is some kind of an emergency, what you have to do in case you have to get to point A or point B with a VIP, with even the President of the United States in the helicopter with you. These are not lighthearted training missions. Every mission that the military undergoes, even training mission, is a dangerous one. And the air traffic near Reagan Airport has multiplied over the years. And as I mentioned, near misses, constant near misses. I feel like in the last year on that very runway, there were multiple near misses, many of them involving two commercial jets, not including a military aircraft, as this tragedy happened to include. But the point is, everyone who's been in Washington, D.C., watching the news and watching what's been going on, knows that there has been incredible stress, let's say, on the air traffic apparatus and infrastructure at Reagan National Airport. And many people have been questioning, well before today, whether we have the very best people and the best systems in place. President Trump, now in charge of the executive branch of our government, he decided to use what happened last night as a perfect example as to why his administration will be putting a focus and a stress on excellence, on merit, on getting the very best people in place in such critical positions. And as the kids like to say during this press conference just moments ago, he went there.
We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. Because over the years, I've watched as things like this happen, and they say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation 3 years later, they announce it. We think we have some pretty good ideas.
That's right. How often do we hear this? Well, we'll do a full investigation, and then people move on. And you never find out the results of that investigation. Or if you do, okay, well, that was old news, so why bother? So Mr. Trump, President Trump, is actually focusing on what he believes is a deteriorating problem within the executive branch of government and the people who have been hired to do critical jobs like this.
And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. Then they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers.
That's right. And make no mistake, at the very beginning of that clip, you saw that the president said, when I was in office, I restored the standards for air traffic control and other critical positions like this. When Biden came in, he reversed that, brought it back down to the Obama standards, which don't necessarily stress merit and excellence as the primary focus for hiring these people. Now, understand, the new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, he's been on the job a little over 24 hours, and I believe he worked overnight being hands-on with the FAA and this investigation. But this is not his his Department of Transportation. This is not his FAA. He has inherited what his predecessor had set up. Mr. Trump at the podium reminded everybody about his predecessor. That would be Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit.
Wow. People talk about how Harry Truman was a plain-spoken president, right? Give him hell, Harry. He is just a good, plain-spoken Midwesterner. Well, I think you could say the same thing about Donald Trump. He's a good, plain-spoken New Yorker. And when you're a plain-spoken New Yorker, you say things like,
he ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit.
Tell it like it is, President Trump. Bottom line is the American people have, in fact, lost faith in their institutions. We've lost faith in our law enforcement and our Justice Department. We've lost faith in our military. And yes, in many respects, we've lost faith in basic institutions that we used to take for granted, like our school systems, like our school boards, for that matter, public health institutions who we found out lied to us and are in the back pockets of wealthy interests who tell them what to do instead of having them actually look out for the best interests of the health and welfare of the American people. And yeah, we are beginning to lose faith in institutions like our airport security and our air traffic controls. And President Trump, in framing this issue around his quest for excellence in these critical positions, taking away the idea of equity, where you're supposed to lift up people who come from different economic standards to give them a shot, even though they don't actually merit that opportunity to be able to work in a critical field. No, equity needs to go away and merit needs to come back. That's what Donald Trump ran on, and that's what he promised to do, and that's what they expect him to do. We expect him to do, and he reiterated that today, utilizing this tragedy as the example of what happens when you don't focus on merit. This is why we need to focus on the very best in all of these critical positions. And President Trump explained why that's so important with regard to we, the people, having faith in these institutions, having faith again in our nation's infrastructure.
Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. They have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that.
Yeah, and he did have more to say about that. But let's take a pause for a minute, because you'll hear the caterwauling and the screaming from the left. Well, there's no evidence of this. What is he talking about? This didn't happen. Biden didn't lower standards. Obama didn't lower standards. That's just a lie. That's just Trump lying again. Trump lies, Trump lies, Trump lies. Well, let's take a walk back memory lane. Tucker Carlson, look how young and innocent he looks. Back when he had his program on Fox News Channel, he actually did a whole segment, a whole series of segments on this, on how standards in America were under assault, how standards were being undermined, all for the sake of diversity and equity and inclusion. He focused on it then.
A biographical questionnaire whose purpose was not hiring skilled controllers. In fact, the more skills you had, the fewer points you got, perversely. But instead, the point was ensuring the hiring of people who were of the right race. It was insane, of course, dangerous, yes, and it sparked a major reaction. Now, the Department of Transportation says it is ready to revise those policies in the name of public safety. Stephen Bradbury is the General Counsel of the Department of Transportation, and he joins us tonight. Mr. Bradbury, thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me on, Tucker.
So it was a pretty simple story, and I think the fix is pretty simple. Can you assure our viewers that air traffic controllers will be hired solely on the basis of relevant criteria? In other words, how good they are at air traffic controlling, and not on the basis of irrelevant criteria like their appearance?
That's right. We're making a change to no longer use that biographical assessment that the FAA has used since 2014 and that you featured on your show.
So let's just be clear here. That was at the very beginning, about a year into the Trump administration, when Tucker featured this story. And it was the general counsel for the Department of Transportation that said, yeah, we're doing away with all of that. And all of that they're doing away with was actually a questionnaire that rated potential people to work as air traffic controllers in the FAA, which is part of the Department of Transportation. And then it was under Barack Obama. where they actually discounted and they penalized candidates for jobs if they had too much experience in the field, because they wanted to give opportunities for people who don't have as much experience. Well, they need a shot, don't they? And of course, their race and their ethnic diversity gave them extra points as well as candidates, instead of actually emphasizing experience. That's a real thing. Trump did away with it, and then Biden restored it. And now Trump is announcing that he's doing it away with it again. It was a power-packed press conference, as Donald Trump also brought on his vice president, J.D. Vance, who reiterated the administration's commitment to these standards.
Which is that when you don't have the best standards in who you're hiring, it means on the one hand, you're not getting the best people in government, but on the other hand, it puts stresses on the people who are already there. And I think that is a core part of what President Trump is going to bring and has already brought to Washington, D.C. is we want to hire the best people because we want the best people at air traffic control. And we want to make sure we have enough people at air traffic control who are actually competent to do the job. If you go back to just some of the headlines over the past 10 years, you have many hundreds of people suing the government because they would like to be air traffic controllers, but they were turned away because of the color of their skin. That policy ends under Donald Trump's leadership because safety is the first priority of our aviation industry. Thank you, Mr. President.
Why is that controversial? It certainly shouldn't be. He also brought in the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, because there is a military angle to this story as well. We're still figuring out exactly what happened on that Black Hawk helicopter. And Mr. Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth, wanted to make sure that everybody listening knows that it is a priority of the Defense Department at this point to ensure that only the best are in those critical positions as well.
But I want to echo what the Transportation Secretary and you, Mr. President, said, because it pertains to the DOD as well. We will have the best and brightest in every position possible. As you said in your inaugural, it is colorblind and merit-based. The best leaders possible, whether it's flying Black Hawks and flying airplanes, leading platoons, or in government. The era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest, whether it's in our air traffic control, or whether it's in our generals, or whether it's throughout government. So thank you for your leadership and courage on that, sir, and we'll stand by you on it.
All right, so now it comes time for the reporters to ask questions, right? And shockingly, they didn't quite understand. They didn't quite understand what the administration was doing here. They didn't understand what they were saying. What do you mean? What do you mean? In fact, isn't it too soon to even make any assessment about this? Let's just be clear here. President Trump and the Vice President and the Secretary of Defense, and also Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, was there as well. They all just said, listen, guys, this is a great example of what can go wrong in these critical positions that the American people have to have full faith in. This is an example of the kind of tragedy that can occur because of how critically important and the safety of the American people are, and the safety of our infrastructure and our air transportation is. And that's why we are doing away with policies in the past that didn't emphasize having the very best skilled people in these positions. That's all they said. And the reporters didn't understand. So Trump was asked a question about it. Mm-hmm.
Do you have that clip, Larry?
Sorry about that. Yep.
Are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power. You have to go by psychological quality. And psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite. So we don't know, but we do know that you had two planes at the same level. You had a helicopter and a plane. That shouldn't have happened. And we'll see. We're going to look into that, and we're going to see. But certainly for an air traffic controller, we want the brightest, the smartest, the sharpest. We want somebody that's psychologically superior. And that's what we're going to have. Yeah.
All right. So let's break this down for a minute, because I found this to be fascinating. No, hold on. Let's get there. first of all, the question was great. What evidence do you have that not hiring the best possible, most qualified person contributed to this accident? Which I guess is a fair question. But the answer is sort of baked in the cake, isn't it? In fact, the reporter, in asking this question, sort of concedes the point. What evidence do you have that having lower skilled people in these jobs led to this accident? And of course, the answer is, well, we don't have evidence and we don't need evidence because the bottom line is we want the highest skilled people in these jobs. We don't want to dumb down the qualifications because this is about having faith in our system. Can we just concede something here? Yes, it's very early on. Yes, they're still investigating this. But there is no suggestion in any way whatsoever from anyone observing this horrible tragedy that there was a mechanical failure, right? Okay, so if it wasn't a mechanical failure, it means it was a human error, right? Right? We can go with that? Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And understand something. Planes take off and land every single day by the hundreds at this airport. And this hasn't happened. We've had near misses. We've all been warned about it. Near miss, another near miss, another near miss, another near miss. Boom, this happened. The near misses all happened under Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden. They did nothing to fix the problem, clearly. Somebody screwed up. Somebody screwed up. We can't just say, oh, these things happen. These things don't happen. These things shouldn't happen. We have systems in place to keep these things from happening. So if something did happen, it means the system wasn't followed. It means there's a breakdown somewhere. And we know that it's not mechanical, so it's got to be a human error. Now, if we can reach that point, which it didn't take us long, any of us, to reach that point. Now, here's what the American people ask. Okay, it was human error, but we do have the very best possible people in place to do this, right? The very best possible people can make a mistake, and that's fine. We get that. But you didn't have somebody who wasn't qualified, right? You didn't pick someone over a more qualified individual, did you? You didn't actually set aside someone who had more qualifications and more skills and actually earned that job so that you could feel good about yourself by placing someone less qualified in that position. But hey, you're giving them a chance because equity and inclusion, right? You didn't do that, did you? And see, now we can't say that. We can't say that. Now, you're right. There's no evidence right now that the lower qualifications caused this accident, but we shouldn't need to even answer that question. It should be a given that the American people have faith that the best possible people were hired to do these critically important jobs, and we don't have that assurance right now, and that is the point. Do you understand? That is the point. We recognize that people make mistakes, but we're talking about 67 human lives that have been extinguished just like that because of this human mistake. And when those human mistakes happen, we should at the very least know, not just assume, not just have a hunch, not just guess, not just hope. We should know that a better qualified person was not pushed aside in this job and a less qualified person was put in the job just because. And the president of the United States couldn't stand at that podium today and say, oh, no, the American people need to know we have the best people in the job. Great people make mistakes, and it appears that this was human error. We're going to get to the bottom of it. But rest assured that in every other airport tower, in every other city in this country, you've got the very best people at these jobs. Can you say that today? No, we cannot say that today. And that's the point. But the reporters don't get it. The reporters don't get it at all. In fact, they continued challenging Trump, but you're speaking out too soon. You're saying this too soon without having all the facts, without having all the evidence. Go ahead, Caitlin Collins, CNN.
Yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Black Hawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't.
Did you catch that question? Did you catch that? You'll hear Trump's answer for a minute, but that is so moronic. We don't have the names of the victims yet, and you're already seemingly blaming Democrat policies for this. What the hell does the names of the victims have to do with any of this? Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. Hey, I'm highly critical of the policies that, in my opinion, led us to this place. But I'm going to hold off that opinion until we can list the names of the 67 people who perished in this crash, because that'll make all the difference in the world. What an absolute moron. Boy, CNN has got to be so proud of this multi-million-dollar hire, who they've moved now to the White House. So she's going to be there for the briefings every day at the White House and then jump onto the set and do her 9 o'clock show in prime time. That's amazing. We don't have the names yet. So why are you saying, what does that got to do with anything? Well, Trump explains.
I don't think so at all. I don't think with the names of the people, you mean the names of the people that are on the plane, you think that's going to make a difference? They are a group of people that have lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that. We'll be giving that very soon. We're in coordination with American Airlines. We're in coordination very strongly, obviously, with the military. But I think that's not a very smart question. I'm surprised coming from you.
Actually, President Trump, you shouldn't be surprised coming from her. I think President Trump still mistakes Caitlin Collins as an employee at the Daily Caller. No. The White House correspondent for the Daily Caller now is Reagan Reese, a great reporter. She's terrific and alumni of Hillsdale College. Not Caitlin Collins. Caitlin Collins is a long way from the Daily Caller, President Trump. She's CNN now. Listen, we can continue showing you moronic and tone-deaf questions from the White House press corps. But we'll just give you one more so that President Trump can have a bit of a mic drop moment on this. Let's go.
Then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
It's all under investigation. You don't know enough. How can you reach the conclusion that diversity had anything to do with this? Because I have common sense. And then as he looks at the entire pool of White House reporters, he adds, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't. No, they don't. Now, if you're a normal human being, you heard the news last night about this horrible crash, and your immediate response was to pray for the victims, hope possibly for some kind of miracle that somebody may have survived, and just wait patiently for some news, something, anything that might turn out something good or positive out of this horrible event. But pray, and just let the first responders do this heroic job. If you're a normal person, that's how you responded. Sadly, though, many commentators on the left on social media, reporters, Democrats, they're not normal people. So this morning at 7:30, when the chief of fire and EMS for Washington, D.C. made the grim announcement, well, we'll show you what they had to say. Here's the announcement, though.
Despite all those efforts, we are now at a point where we are switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation. At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident. And we have recovered 27 people from the plane and 1 from the helicopter. The district office of the medical examiner has lead on reuniting these bodies and these people with their loved ones, and we will continue to work to find all the bodies and collect them and reunite them with their loved ones.
A horrible, horrible human tragedy. And if you're a normal person, as I said, the only way to respond is with prayer and hug your loved ones, especially loved ones like me, who has someone, my own child, boarding an American Airlines plane about a half an hour ago, and you hold your breath and you say your prayer and you wait for that text when she lands at her destination. That's what you do if you're a normal person. Senator Patty Murray of the state of Washington, Democrat, she's not a normal person. She sees this story and decides to grandstand at a confirmation hearing today and say this.
HHS has really broad and critical responsibilities to protect and preserve healthcare and social services, from women's health to childcare to biomedical research. That's just a few. In light of last night's tragedy, I do want to express my thoughts and prayers. But it is, I think, a painful reminder to all of us that we need competent people running our federal agencies to respond when a crisis strikes.
I see. So this is an example of incompetent people. But and listen, if that's what you're saying, if you're talking about the air traffic controllers who are incompetent, and I'm not saying they are, but I'm just using Patty Murray's words, and they were hired and put in place over more competent people, that's fine. But see, that's not what she's saying. You know what she was saying? She was trying to make a point about Robert Kennedy being Secretary of Health and Human Services. She's using the airline crash last night to point out this is why we need competent people to be the Secretary of Transportation or Health and Human Services, and Bobby Kennedy isn't. What a ghoul she is. Abby Phillips, also not a normal person, anchor at CNN covering this tragedy in real time, also had her opportunity to blame who now? Donald Trump.
Mary, I have one more question for you. Look, it's January 29th. We are just 9 days out from a presidential transition, an administrative transition. The FAA administrator resigned at the end of the Biden administration. So there is no permanent confirmed FAA administrator right now. This is going to be a time when there's going to be a lot of public communication, right, and a lot of investigation of what happened here. What do you anticipate this transition period is going to mean for what happens today and tomorrow and in the coming days as we find out what happened here?
Well, it's just another high water mark for CNN. You know who else isn't a normal person who just focuses on this as the human tragedy that it is? Everyone who works at the Washington Post editorial board. Let's zoom in on their front page today. Again, this happened in their backyard. This is a local story in Washington, D.C. Their headquarters is a few blocks away from the crash site. Above the fold, picture of RFK. White House office withdraws orders that froze spending. Next columns. RFK Jr. faces blistering questions. Buyout proposal highlights Musk's broad influence. Trump skirts and stretches law on the civil service. Why is this not the top headline? Why isn't it the second tier headlines? Scrolling down further, Trump orders 30,000 bed Guantanamo Bay deportee camp. All the way down in the lower right, a tiny little 1-inch column, bodies pulled from Potomac after collision of aircraft. You're a newspaper in Washington, D.C. It's literally your job to cover what happens here. And you're more interested in Bobby Kennedy facing blistering questions. You know who else isn't a normal person? Neera Tanden, left-wing liberal commentator. She decided to highlight the fact that the FAA chief quit on January 20th after Elon Musk told him to resign, because this is Musk's fault. You see, Elon Musk is responsible for this. Even a picture of Elon Musk there. I'm surprised she didn't pick the, fake Nazi salute photograph for her attack on him. Because, see, if the head of the FAA hadn't quit on January 20th, which is not abnormal when a new president comes in, apparently this wouldn't have happened. If you're Neera Tanden, if you're not a normal person. You know who else is pretty abnormal? Bakari Sellers, left-wing race-baiting commentator for CNN. Bakari Sellers also pointed out that Trump was responsible for this. He posted this on X, the Everything app, 8 days ago. What was 8 days ago? Trump's dangerous freeze of air traffic control hiring. 8 days ago. He posted this within an hour of this crash. Because, if Trump hadn't put a hiring freeze for air traffic controllers, this wouldn't have happened 8 days later at Reagan National Airport, because someone who was just hired as an air traffic controller 8 days ago before the freeze would have been there in the air traffic control booth at Reagan or something. What a ghoul. Bakari Sellers actually deleted this and apologized for it. Here's what he said. I deleted the post because timing matters. Oh, I see. So the ghoulish political point that makes no sense and is moronic and is a lie was fine. It was just the timing that was wrong. Politics at this point does not. I effed up. I own that. I'm very prayerful. Are you? Are you, Bakari? Who are you praying to exactly? I'm very prayerful, but I'm also very frustrated, upset, and disturbed by where we are as a country. I recognize and I will do better. The only thing that matters is rescuing the survivors and ensuring this never happens again. That's right. There were still bodies floating in the Potomac with the hopes of survival when Bakari's sellers decided to attack Donald Trump on a completely tangential issue that had nothing to do with what happened last night. Also, not a normal person, Aaron Rupar, a left-wing influencer for libs who really just gains attention by posting outlandish things and getting a response. So I'm loath to bring attention to this because it's what he wants. Headlines from a week ago is an incident near DCA appears to be the deadliest aviation disaster in the U.S. since 9/11. Headline, Trump guts key aviation safety committee, fires head of TSA Coast Guard. It's funny. Trump guts key aviation safety committee. Because you know what? I'm sure the committee would have fixed this. I'm sure the committee could have prevented this. I'm sure the key aviation safety committee over the course of the last 9 days would have put things in place to stop what happened last night. By the way, Community Notes didn't like it either, but John Hassan makes a very good point. If you hear about a horrific plane crash and your first thought is, how can I blame this on? You should probably ask yourself if you're on the road to hell. Listen, I understand what you may be thinking. Hey, Trump blamed DEI on this too. Well, actually, he didn't. What he did was he said, this is an example of why we have to have the best and brightest in key positions. These ghouls that I just enumerated, they literally blamed Donald Trump. They blamed Donald Trump, or they blamed his actions, or they tried to blame, in some weird way, Bobby Kennedy. Because politics is more important to them than being a human being. Just be glad that you're not them today. Kash Patel is the nominee for the director of, let's try that again. Kash Patel has been nominated to be the new director of the FBI, and today was day one of his confirmation hearings. And if you're wondering who's Kash Patel, is he going to be a good FBI director? What's this all about? Let me show you an exchange that he had with Minnesota Democrat Amy Klobuchar. She is a little unhinged and nutso, but she decided that she wanted her moment on camera and to preen a little bit, and she wanted to use Kash Patel as the punching bag. Kash Patel punches back. That's something you should know about him, something Amy Klobuchar learned very quickly.
You said we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens who helped Joe Biden rig the elections. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. Is that something you said?
That's a partial statement of what I said.
Steve Bannon's podcast. You also said you would put the entire fake news mafia press corps on your list. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
I don't have that in front of me.
Benny Johnson's podcast, 8/21/23. You have said that the FBI, including today, you said that they remain utterly corrupt. This is an agency with agents who have taken down terrorists, taken down bank robbers, taken down crime. And you wrote that the FBI has become so thoroughly compromised that it will remain a threat to the people unless drastic measures are taken. Do you know that under Chris Wray's leadership, he took over at a very difficult time, we all know that, appointed by President Trump, that during his tenure, the applications to the FBI has in fact tripled. Do you think people would be applying to that agency like in those numbers if they thought it was so corrupt?
The American public's trust in it is at 40%. That's an all-time low.
Did you say that the FBI headquarters should be shut down and reopened as a museum of the deep state?
Mr. Chairman, are we allowed to go an extra time?
Let's see, you get a second round. Before I call on Senator Lee.
Could he just answer the question if he said that the FBI headquarters where they investigate cybercrime and terrorism should be shut down and open as a deep state?
All right, so this is great, and you're going to watch this play out, but I just want to let you know what's happening here. She ran out of time before she asked that last question about shutting down the FBI headquarters and turning it into a museum of the deep state. By the way, the context of that question is FBI is looking to move to a new location. They want a multi-gajillion dollar new headquarters in either, well, Biden administration awarded it to Maryland, but we're rescinding that, and they want to go to Northern Virginia. That's where the agents really want to go. And there's been a big controversy. Why should the FBI get this huge new headquarters? Why can't they just stay downtown in D.C.? Kash was asked about this in an interview, and he said, I'll tell you what you should do with the headquarters downtown. You should shut it down and turn it into a museum of the deep state. Okay. Funny, flippant remark, actually. I kind of liked it. Amy Klobuchar didn't get that question in time. So now she's going to fight. She's like, I should be able to get an answer. And the chairman's like, you'll have another round of question. I want my answer. So she demands to get the answer. And Kash Patel delivers the answer. So that's how I guarantee you, Amy Klobuchar wishes now that she hadn't demanded the answer. Watch what happens.
Mr. Chair. As a museum, did he say that the headquarters should be shut down?
Mr. Chair.
I deserve an answer to that question. He is asking to be head of the FBI, and he said that their headquarters should be shut down.
Mr. Chair, parliamentary inquiry.
You got anything you want to say, Mr. Patel, before I go on to Senator Lee?
Simply this. If the best attacks on me are going to be false accusations and grotesque mischaracterizations, the only thing this body is doing is defeating the credibility of the men and women at the FBI. I stood with them here in this country. In every theater of war we have, I was on the ground in service of this nation. And any accusations leveled against me that I would somehow put political bias before the Constitution are grotesquely unfair. And I will have you reminded that I have been endorsed by over 300,000 law enforcement officers to become the next director of the FBI. Let's ask them.
Mr. Chairman, I am quoting his own words from September of 2024. It is his own words. It is not some conspiracy. It is what Mr. Patel actually said himself. Facts matter.
You forget that you had 3 minutes in the next round to say what you just said.
Look at that face. Look at Jabba the Hutt there. So smug and satisfied with herself. She thinks she actually won that round. Oh, Senator Klobuchar, I hate to break it to you, but you have not earned that smug, self-satisfied, supercilious smirk on your face. That was some A1 alliteration there. That's Kash Patel. That's Kash Patel, my friends. And one other quick thing I want to go back on. Did she just suggest that Christopher Wray has been a great FBI director and the FBI has a great reputation because there's been an increase in recruitment numbers for the FBI? Now, first of all, I don't connect those two the way she does, but let's go with the argument for a minute. FBI is seeing an increased number of people who are looking to be FBI special agents. There's an increase in recruitment. That means that there's nothing wrong with the agency. Okay, now do the military, Senator. If recruitment numbers are a reflection of how solid and healthy and great the current leadership is for a government institution like the FBI, then what does it tell you about the Pentagon? What does it tell you about the Army and the Navy right now? How are those recruitment numbers in the military that you and your party have ruined over the last several years? When recruitment numbers go up for the Army, I'm sure that Senator Klobuchar will be the first one to congratulate Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, right? Right? Yeah, I doubt it too. Lindsey Graham of South Carolina wanted to explain to the entire world why so many people hate Kash Patel. Why do they hate Kash Patel? Because Kash Patel is the man who exposed the Russian collusion hoax. Kash Patel was the chief counsel on the House Intelligence Committee under Congressman Devin Nunes. When Devin Nunes found out about the text messages with Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, when he found out about the lies on the warrant for the FISA spy warrant that they set up for Carter Page, Kash Patel discovered all of this. Kash Patel revealed this to the world. Kash Patel destroyed the secret FBI investigation into Donald Trump and all of the leaks that were sent out to the media to make everyone around the world think that Donald Trump was Vladimir Putin's puppet and falsely accuse him of stealing the election. Kash Patel exposed all of that, and that's why they hate him. That's it. Beginning, middle, and end. That's why they hate him. And Lindsey Graham, he walked us down memory lane to remind us of all of that.
In this memo, you kind of dissected the abuses of Crossfire Hurricane, right?
I did, Senator.
And the Mueller investigation. So the Crossfire Hurricane investigators, two of them were Strzok and Page. Are you familiar with them?
I am, Senator.
Okay. It was opened up on July the 31st, 2016. And here's what Strzok said. And damn, this feels momentous because this matters. The other one did too, but that was to ensure we didn't F something up. This matters because this matters. So super glad to be on this voyage with you. That's to Page. And Page responds a couple of months later, he's not ever going to be President, right? Talking about Trump. Strzok, no, he won't. We'll stop it. Is it fair to say that the people in charge of investigating Crossfire Hurricane hated Trump's guts?
Well, you don't have to take my word for it. That statement, along with the statements from the sources.
Are
during that
those days
operations-
over in the FBI, you hope?
Well, if they're not, they will be.
Okay, good. You know who Carter Page was?
I do, Senator.
Do you know that the FBI secured warrants against him on 4 different occasions?
Yes, Senator.
Do you know that the information that they relied upon came from the Steele dossier?
I do.
Was it you that were able to find out that the Steele dossier was a bunch of crap?
Yes, Senator. We followed the money and we exposed the fraud that was the Steele dossier.
And the primary subsource was Ignor Danchenko, right?
That's correct, Senator.
And he was actually a Russian analyst.
That's right.
Are you aware that in January he told the FBI that, let's see, what did he tell the FBI? Steele had no proof to support the statements, then it was just talk. The primary subsource explained to the FBI that his information came from word of mouth and hearsay, conversations he had with friends over beers, and some of the information were statements he heard made in jest. And he told the FBI this in January.
That's
of
right.
2017. And they got 2 more warrants after that.
That's correct.
Are you aware that the FBI had volumes of information that the Steele dossier was a bunch of bullshit and nobody ever told anybody at the top?
I am, sir. We exposed.
Or they lied about being told.
That's correct.
So are you aware of the fact that the FISA court rebuked the FBI? Are you aware of the fact that an FBI lawyer went to jail because he misled the court by manipulating a email from the CIA?
I am.
Do you believe that Crossfire Hurricane was one of the most disgusting episodes in FBI history of a corrupt investigation led by corrupt people who wanted to take Donald Trump down?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that's why you're in this chair today, to fix that?
I think that's a big.
Without Crossfire Hurricane, this guy wouldn't be here. And my friends on the other side, like pulling teeth, the Horowitz investigation, the Inspector General labeled this fraudulent at its core, mismanaged at its core, running stop signs. At every turn, they went forward when they should have stopped. The Durham report said it was obviously politically motivated. FBI agents were telling anybody and everybody that would listen, this is not reliable, this is not trustworthy, but they plowed on. And because of you and Trey Gowdy and others, we now know about this.
Now, let me just pause here. He's almost done, and it's good stuff. And I get it. There's good Lindsey Graham and there's bad Lindsey Graham. And I hate bad Lindsey Graham, but I really like good Lindsey Graham. And this was good Lindsey Graham today. And let me just be clear here. Not only did everything he just lay out there with regard to Crossfire Hurricane and the fraudulent investigation, politically motivated investigation into Donald Trump that crippled his first presidency, brought on the special prosecutor, and basically hung the president and the administration out to dry. It was an outrageous thing that we saw continue, by the way, with the lawfare and the Biden administration attempts to put him in jail and another special prosecutor and the Mar-a-Lago raid and all of the things that went on. All of those things, he's right, are why we need a Kash Patel to fix the FBI, because he knows what they're capable of, he knows what they've done, and he'll be able to fix it. But there's something else here that needs to be said, something very, very important. Everything that he just laid out there about that politically motivated, corrupted process where the FBI used their enormous powers, including to spy on an American citizen who has never been charged with a crime. His name is Carter Page. He was an unpaid advisor to the Trump campaign in 2015. They spied on him. They maligned him. They leaked to the media that he was a Russian asset. He's a Naval Academy graduate. He is a retired Navy officer. And they have never charged him once with a crime. In fact, his only involvement with Russian spies was to help the CIA bust Russian spies 20 years ago. But the FBI used all of that power on that corrupted process because they hated Donald Trump and it was all political motivated. What needs to be said here that isn't being said is that the Democrats on that panel, they thought it was great. They thought James Comey, who oversaw all that, was great. They think Christopher Wray, the guy who came to cover it up and cleaned up the mess, is great. If you criticize the FBI for what they did and everything that I just laid out and Lindsey Graham just laid out and the Kash Patel exposed, they will say that you're unpatriotic. They'll say that you hate the FBI. They say that you're the problem. No, I love the FBI, and that's why I'm so angry about what the FBI did under that disgusting, politicized, corrupt leadership. It's not enough that Kash Patel exposed all of that and now he's going to be the new FBI director and he's going to fix it. What needs to be said is the Democrats celebrated it and thought that that FBI was the perfect FBI to have. That's what's scary. All right, Lindsey Graham's going to finish it up now.
Everybody who signed the warrant under questioning by me said if they knew then what they know now, they wouldn't sign the warrant. Comey said that. Yates said that. Rosenstein said that. The reason you're here is because most of the public, almost every Republican believes that the FBI has been used continuously in a political fashion, ignoring evidence, making up evidence, lying to get Donald Trump. And when it came to the Hunter Biden laptop, they told every social media outlet in October 2020, oh, that's Russian disinformation. That was BS too. Right before the election, the FBI intervened to shut reporting on the Hunter laptop down as being Russian misinformation, according to Zuckerberg. Do you promise all of us those days are over at the FBI?
Yes, Senator, they are.
Are you proud of what you did to find all that?
Absolutely.
You think that's why you're here today, is to make sure that never happens again?
The American people deserve just that.
Well, I don't know about you, but I will be incredibly happy, incredibly relieved, and yes, incredibly proud when Kash Patel is confirmed as your next FBI director. And make no mistake, he will be confirmed as your next FBI director. You know, there was a time in our nation's history, not too long ago, it was the mid-70s after the death of J. Edgar Hoover, where both Republicans and Democrats joined together in their condemnation of the excesses and abuses that the FBI had engaged in under J. Edgar Hoover's leadership. They both agreed that he had gone too far and the FBI had to be reined in. And a lot of the protocols and things that they have to follow or are supposed to follow were set up at that time because both Republicans and Democrats in Congress agreed that the FBI should not have the kind of power that they have and be able to use the kind of power they had for corrupted political purposes. We all agreed on that. Everyone in history looks back. J. Edgar Hoover did some great things against the communists who were working in our government. I'm not saying he was all bad, but there were a lot of bad things the FBI did back then under his leadership. And after his death, they put reforms in place to fix that. Back then, both Republicans and Democrats agreed on it. Why? Because J. Edgar Hoover used his power and used his dirty tricks and his tools against both Republicans and Democrats. You see, nowadays, the FBI seems to be right back to its old tricks, but they only use those tools and those weapons and that power against Republicans or against Trump Republicans. And because of that, Democrats seem just fine with it. Not anymore. That changes the second Kash Patel becomes your FBI director. All right, let's set this up properly. Well, it's an embarrassment of riches here. As you know, I am a big fan of Kash Patel, and I'm excited for him to be the next FBI director. He's undergoing his hearing right now as we speak. I'm also a big fan of Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. And so imagine how excited I am to see both of them in a 7-minute exchange. Senator John Kennedy, by the way, sporting the Harry Potter Hogwarts look. Not only does he have the Harry Potter glasses, by the way, good look. Huh? But he's literally got the Hogwarts tie going here. It's Gryffindor. Who knew that John Kennedy was Gryffindor? It's a good look. I'm very excited to see this exchange. And here's the fun thing. I'm going to be seeing it for the first time right along with you because this exchange happened during the first half hour of our program today. So let's watch together, shall we?
You've made a lot of people mad, haven't you, Mr. Patel?
Seems so, Senator.
You think maybe you've made the right people mad?
As my FBI agents, the BRIC agents told me when I was running cases with them across this country and around the world, if you're not ticking off some people, you're not doing your job right.
My colleague and friend, Senator Durbin, called you a conspiracy theorist. You remember that?
I do, Senator.
You were instrumental in revealing that the Trump-Russia election collusion hoax was a hoax, weren't you?
Yes, sir. I was a lead investigator.
Sounds to me like we need to get some new conspiracy theories because all the old ones turned out to be true.
Facts matter, Senator.
Yeah. I mean, conspiracy theorists are up something like 37-0. You're not saying that everybody at the FBI is bad, are you?
Never said that. I've overwhelmingly said multiple times that 98% of the FBI is courageous, apolitical warriors of justice. They just need better leadership, especially those who participated in these conspiracies that actually turned out to degrade.
Who put away the Unabomber?
The FBI.
Yep. Who put away Timothy McVeigh and his Stalin's stomach for blood?
BRIC agents at the FBI.
Who helped investigate Jussie Smollett, who, in an effort of self-aggrandizement, set back the fight for minority rights for years?
I think that was local authorities.
It was the FBI that opened an investigation, wasn't it?
Eventually, yes, Senator.
There have been or were some bad people at the FBI and the Justice Department, which work hand in glove, weren't there?
Unfortunately, yes, Senator.
Secretary Clinton's lawyer, a gentleman by the name of Michael Sussman, had a pass to come and go at the FBI building as he wished. Don't you think the American people have a right to know about the details of that?
Not just that, but what a political party was doing with the secure compartmented information facility with direct access to the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Mr. Hunter Biden cheated on his income taxes. Didn't pay $1.4 million in income taxes over 4 years. And he filed fraudulent returns. He tried to deduct his hookers as a business expense, for God's sakes. And they hit him with 2 misdemeanors before there was a public outcry. Don't you think the American people are entitled to know the details of that?
The American people are entitled to a singular form of justice and the details to every public corruption investigation.
You remember Peter Strzok?
I sure do.
One of the lead investigators for Mr. Mueller's Russian collusion hoax?
Yes, Senator.
Do you remember when the Inspector General, not his colleagues, turned him in? Inspector General found that Mr. Peter Strzok said, quote, sent an email to his girlfriend, quote, just went to a Southern Virginia Walmart. I could smell the Trump support, end quote. Remember that?
He did that while employed at the FBI while working on that investigation.
Do you remember when the IG revealed another email by Mr. Strzok to his girlfriend? Mr. Strzok said, quote, I am riled up. Trump is a fucking idiot, is unable to provide a coherent answer. End of quote. You remember that?
Peter Strzok said that.
You remember when his girlfriend texted Mr. Strzok, quote, Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? And Mr. Strzok replied, no, he won't. We'll stop it.
I do remember their insurance policy.
And then Mr. Strzok testified in front of God and country that never had his political beliefs impacted his work. You believe in the tooth fairy?
When I was a kid.
This is a good opportunity for me to jump in and remind everybody watching that every single thing that Senator Kennedy is detailing here about what happened at the FBI when they pooled their resources, their talent, and all of their formidable federal powers of investigation to intrude on the civil rights of innocent Americans associated with the Trump campaign, including President Trump himself, that when the FBI did that, the Democrats in this country, elected officials in power, as well as all of those Democrats who work in our legacy corporate propaganda media, they all cheered it on. In fact, they participated in it. Adam Schiff, now a senator from California, participated in it. Jake Tapper, the Washington Post's Philip Bump, various other journalists working for major media corporations participated in it by gladly taking anonymous leaks from those very FBI personnel who still work at the agency and then publicize those anonymous leaks that were lies about innocent Americans whose only crime was to support the man who won the presidential election in 2016. Democrats cheered and supported it and still do fondly look back on that FBI as the good old days. They lionized the FBI director at the time, James Comey, as a saint. See, it's not enough. The Kash Patel is here to fix the problem because the problem still exists as long as the Democrats who are sitting right next to Senator Kennedy actually be part of this problem, which they are. And I just wanted to remind you all of that because Kennedy's on a roll and I didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle. All right. Come on, grown-up Harry Potter. Take us home.
You believe Jimmy Hoffa died of natural causes?
He's also not in the end zone of Giant Stadium.
And then Mr. Strzok got fired, and next thing we know, the FBI and the Department of Justice, after he sued, gave him $1.2 million. Don't you think the American people are entitled to know the details of that?
Absolutely.
Now, I want you to think hard before you answer my next question. Do you believe in the adage that two wrongs don't make a right, but they do make it even?
Senator, I think if anyone commits a wrong in government service, the American public deserve to know the absolute secular detail of that corrupt activity.
When reforming the FBI and the Justice Department, two wrongs don't make a right, but they do make it even, is the wrong approach, isn't it?
That's correct.
And we're going to hold you accountable for that.
I hope you do.
Now, there's some good people at the FBI.
Lots.
And there have been and may still be some bad people there. And you've got to find out who the bad people are and get rid of them in accordance with due process and the rule of law. And then you've got to lift up the good people. Don't go over there and burn that place down. Go over there and make it better. Do you commit to us today that you will do that?
I commit to you, if confirmed, Senator, every single day, 24/7, 365, the FBI will be the premier law enforcement agency in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've made a lot of people mad.
Pretty good stuff. And thank you, as always, to Senator John Kennedy for delivering it and in a very snazzy way. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about that moment when I can say of Kash Patel that he's not just Kash Patel. He's Mr. Director. That day's coming very, very soon. Brand new movie opening this weekend, Friday, January 31st. And I've seen it, and I know you're going to like it, and I want you to see the trailer. Take a look.
Brockman. Gear up. Great.
Let's focus on the mission.
Can we even call this a mission? We're gonna be on the ground for like 20 minutes.
Do you take anything seriously?
No.
We have multiple dead, multiple wounded. We need a medevac right now. They can't get us. We're in North Korea. So you're gonna have to get these people out of here.
Sir, respectfully, I'm trained to analyze data, not this.
Right now, you're the leader. So you gotta be that for them and for yourself. Don't let it end here.
We are going deeper into North Korea. Following a guy who has no idea what he's doing.
No matter how hard it gets, you stick your chest out.
Oh, no.
You keep your head up, and you handle it.
Is that supposed to be a pep talk?
It's Tupac.
Should we say confess?
Rockman, behind us.
어린 주시라. 어린 내놔라.
You won't seem pretty smart. Why choose this? Where I come from, there just isn't a lot of options.
Our country has given me so much, and I wanted to give back.
We're almost there.
Contact right! Down! I'll buy you some time! Let's go home.
As you saw, it's exciting, it's exhilarating, it's a military-based film, takes place in Korea, and the director of the movie, Steve Barnett, joins us right now. Valiant One is the movie, and well, first of all, sir, congratulations on this movie. It really is sort of like there's a couple of respites where the action takes a breather, and I appreciate that because I needed the breather, but the pace is phenomenal in this movie.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words. Yeah, it was a real challenge to make the movie. It took us a while, but once we got up to Vancouver and we worked with that Canadian crew and my cast, my producers, everybody involved made it a really worthwhile experience.
You know, it's one of those things where I really don't want to give away any spoilers, but I think I can say in a rough sketch here, this is a army mission in Korea. It goes horribly wrong, and U.S. soldiers find themselves behind enemy lines in North Korea. Very dangerous situation. And it says that this is based on true events. Can you sort of flesh that out for a little bit? What exactly inspired this?
Yeah, totally. I want to make sure there's a clarification though. It's inspired by. So based on is a whole different thing. So yeah, a Navy SEAL buddy of mine, we reconnected at my high school reunion. His name's Todd Sharbut. We ran into each other and it was the typical, what are you up to? What are you up to? And he's like, I'm a Navy SEAL. And I was like, but my head exploded. I was like, dude, we got to grab some coffee. I'm a huge supporter and fan of our men and women in uniform. And to hear him say that got me excited because I love hearing the stories. I grew up on these kinds of films, and I'm always, as a producer, I'm always searching for good ideas. So he mentioned this incident that happened in a helicopter over the South Korean DMZ border. And they hit weather and they got pushed all the way into the DMZ. And it was a pretty hardcore moment for him. As a Navy SEAL, he's seeing danger on every mission. And this was a routine mission. And he thought, this is it. This is the moment I die. But the helicopter pilot was able to pull them out and bring them back to base. And I said to him, I go, well, what would happen if you guys did crash in the DMZ or even worse in North Korea? I said, first of all, it's a very real possibility and a very terrible outcome because there's no way to send in troops to rescue you in that area. So he said we'd have to figure our way out, and that was kind of the incident that inspired me to go forward with this. I went and got a screenwriter named Eric Tipton, who's a good friend, and partnered up with Bernie Goldman, who was a producer I did 300 and Land of the Dead with back in the day, and we started developing it. So that was the origin story.
That's amazing. And given that that's what you had to work with to sort of inspire it, it really did sort of, you fleshed out a really thrilling drama. And I loved one element of it. It's bad enough being an American soldier caught in North Korea. That would be horrible. One of the soldiers, I don't think I'm spoiling much, is a third generation Korean American. And very quickly, he sort of emphasizes to his comrades there that if he gets caught, it's going to be 10 times worse for him. And not only does that show the brutality of the North Korea regime, but it also shows you the amazing aspect of what America is, and the fact that a Korean American he's just one of our soldiers, one of our guys wearing green. But in the eyes of other countries, he's very different. And I sort of love that very subtle message about what makes America so special and so unique.
Oh, there's no question. And you see it in every way when you look at our men and women in uniform. It's an incredibly diverse group of people who all come together and adopt a culture that is necessary for them to do their jobs, and that's military culture. And back to Todd Sharbet, the Navy SEAL buddy who inspired this. It was important to me and truly a gift to be able to have him as a producer on the movie and be with us every single day through pre-production all the way through production, to show the cast and the crew really that culture and help them understand how these folks talk to each other, how they move with these weapons, how they move with a huge, backpack filled with gear, but also down to the details of the uniforms, how the patches are worn, the direction of the flag on the shoulder. It was cool having him there every single second of the day, so much so that I'm not kidding. I probably said this 10, 15 times a day. Let's ask Todd, because the actors would have questions about specific military stuff. Let's say, where's Todd? Let's ask Todd. So we got him a T-shirt he wore on the last day that said, let's ask Todd.
That's great. And by the way, after speaking with a lot of people who have been in combat and fought at the highest level, like you're describing, one thing that seems to be a common denominator is the banter, the dialogue, the sort of messing with each other and sort of trying to inject humor into very unhumorous situations. That seemed very authentic too.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a big part of it. These folks are the best. They're the best among us. They really are. And, when they're thrown into a situation like that, they always say humor's the best medicine. So there's a bit of that throughout. It's not a comedy at all, but, it definitely has moments of humor that gives you a little bit of a breath of fresh air.
I want to ask you a bit about your new venture, Monarch Films, and sort of the projects you're working on. This is one of them, because this is not by definition a faith-based film necessarily, but there's a certain scene where the Lord's Prayer is used in an incredibly tense situation. And it's very dramatic, it's very moving, and very effective. And it struck me as I was watching that scene, Steve, that we don't see characters in movies praying very often. And we used to, but we did here. And because of that, it was effective. Like I said, it's not a faith-based film, but that moment of faith really hit home.
Yeah, look, there's that old saying, there's no atheists in a foxhole, right? That was probably, I don't know who created it, but it was probably a soldier in a foxhole. It was an important moment for me. I'm a believer. I have faith, and I know that one of the things about military culture is faith is a big part of it. So it was important to me to drop that in. And when we constructed this thing, we needed to get soldiers away from the wreckage, and we had one who's pinned down, and it felt like the perfect moment for that soldier to have that moment between himself and his God. So it was it was a cool moment to shoot, and boy, it was fun to edit.
And incredibly well performed as well. The actors are great across the board. And what I really loved about the character development in these actors is a lot of times when you see a big war hero movie, you sort of figure out who's going to be the hero. They already sort of exemplify it, personify it at the beginning. They're these sort of, not this movie. The people who become the heroes, they find something within themselves. Either it's their training or their character or the way their parents raise them. Not sure, but you as the director sort of sees that moment where you can see the valor rise to the top, and that was moving. I loved the way you did that.
Oh man, thank you. That is an awesome compliment. I really appreciate that. It was important, when you're doing any kind of hero journey, a reluctant hero journey, the moment where they recognize the hero inside of them needs to really pop off the screen. And I was lucky to have amazing actors in this film. Chase Stokes is awesome. Lana Condor her performance in this is amazing. Des Borges, Daniel June, Jonathan Weitzel, Cal Mulvey. I'm a lucky man to have the team that we had on this film.
By the way, I got to say, again, it goes to the actors, but there's something in their eyes where you almost get this feeling, inner monologue, that it's like, well, no one else is going to step up and do this. I guess it's got to be me. And I have no doubt that that's reality. I have no doubt that some of the most heroic moments just come because, well, I guess it's got to be me.
Yeah. And imagine if and this is really the setup of the movie. Imagine if you were never even supposed to be on this mission, but somehow you outrank everyone and now you're in charge. That was a cool idea that we came up with. The idea of this tech soldier who's kind of indifferent to his world and just kind of, counting the days until he's going to get out of there and go to Silicon Valley. And this is a major speed bump along the way, and one that he needed as a human. He needed to learn that, he is a leader and he shouldn't be afraid of leading, especially when it comes to making life or death decisions for himself and the people around him.
We're pretty patriotic here on our program. Our audience is patriotic. I make no mystery about my faith and my belief in God. That's how I knew that people would love Valiant 1. We really wanted to bring it to our audience's attention. But at the same time, people like me, people like our audience, we lament that these movies are few and far between. We lament that Hollywood does not create as much product that speaks to us, which is weird to me because I think Hollywood would do very well. We've seen movies that are quite successful when, in fact, you get that unicorn moment. So that's why I'm really interested to learn more about Monarch Films, because that's sort of what you're trying to do. That's what you're able to do now with your new production house.
Yeah, we've been doing this for about 5 years. We've made a bunch of different kinds of movies. Obviously, you can see it right there in the corner. Hitman was our last film to come out. That was on Netflix. Also, not a faith-based film at all. In fact, rated R and pretty edgy at times. But I think one of the things for our company, and I'll tease out a few projects that are in production right now because we're very excited about them, is I think there's a common thread that it's the underdog story. We like that story, and that's Valiant 1 perfectly. I mean, it's an underdog story. Hitman was an underdog story. I think if you saw A Week Away, that was as well, and so was Journey to Bethlehem. So that seems to be the common thread. Now, all of them are different. They're very different movies. A couple of those are musicals. Obviously, Hitman's a dark comedy. And coming up, we have an animated film that we're very, very excited about that stars Julie Louis-Dreyfus, Seth Rogen, Bryan Cranston, Abby Jacobson, Wanda Sykes, Sarah Silverman, Bowen Yang. I mean, I could go on because the cast is incredible. And that one is also sort of an underdog story, but it's a dark comedy, a sophisticated comedy about what happens to a family when the matriarch in that family experiences dementia and Alzheimer's. So, that's a family reunification and family bonding movie as they work through that situation. We have another TV series that we're doing with Angel Studios, who did The Chosen and Sound of Freedom, called Testament, which is incredibly ambitious retelling of the Book of Acts. But it's set in a sort of alternate contemporary world. So seeing that storyline up against a world that we sort of recognize as our own, at least a little bit, is really, really cool. So I'm excited for everyone to see it.
I'm going to be honest. I'm interested. Acts of the Apostles is my favorite book in the Bible, actually. I read it often, and I saw that you were working on this project, didn't know it was in an alternate contemporary universe. I am skeptical, but I'm interested and open to see what you do with it.
You should be. Look, we're always up for a challenge, right? I mean, that's an ambitious, kind of crazy version of that story, but yeah, it's coming together pretty nicely. So I can't wait for you guys to see it and weigh in for better or worse.
Holy Scripture sort of transcends its time and place, certainly. So I think it could be very cool and effective. Well, listen, thank you for making this film. Congratulations on the film. I hope it has a great weekend. It is obviously a love letter to our military, and especially given the events in Washington, D.C. with the tragic Black Hawk helicopter collision with the passenger jet. It's a reminder that, we keep hearing about. I have a daughter in the military, and she keeps telling me, oh, we're doing a routine thing. There's nothing routine in the military. Nothing is routine. And a tragedy can happen at any moment. That's why they're the best of the best. So I appreciate you honoring them with Valiant One.
And I thank her for her service. That's pretty special.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it, Steve. I really appreciate it, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You have a good day.
Yeah, Valiant One. Go see it. It's a really good movie, and it was a very cool conversation to have with the director. What a loaded show, you guys. Thank you so much. A busy day in Washington, D.C., and I'm glad I got to spend it with you this afternoon. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next time, same place. We got to do super chats, don't we? We have super chats. I stopped myself because I knew we have super chats.
Way to go.
Go. Here we go. Angela for $5 super chat. Thank you, Angela. You are the best. My prayers are with the loved ones. Yes, and the souls lost last night. My thoughts are, yeah, exactly. I made a point about thoughts and prayers. That was an hour and a half ago. Thank you, Angela. Prayers are with the loved ones. Thoughts are, did DEI from the morons who just left cause this tragedy? Well, will we know whether it caused it directly? I'd like to know. But frankly, even more importantly, it should never be a question. We should always know that the very best and highly skilled, most qualified people are doing critical jobs like this. That's why it should be eliminated immediately. And that's why Donald Trump said what he was saying today. Thank you for that, Angela. Oh, and a $2 super chat from Angela. Cash is not faltering against liberal Senate doves. No, Cash is performing brilliantly today. He's going to make a great FBI director. Merit over DEI, what a concept. Common sense. That's what President Trump was trying to say today. Thank you for that $2, Angela. Angela, my gosh, you're just like full of the super chats today. That's fantastic. Wasn't there a boat accident caused a bridge collapse under the same DEI transportation secretary? DEI is DOA in DC. Yeah, that was a freight ship that ran into a bridge in the Chesapeake Bay up in Baltimore. That is correct. And boy, they just brushed that investigation under the rug, didn't they? But I think that the cause of that and the reason for that was the ship operator's error. But of course, our tax dollars will be paying for the new bridge. Of course. We also have a phenomenal $20 super chat from our buddy Arthur Brogdon over at Rumble. Read your book, very readable. I gave it 5 stars. Hey, Arthur, well, you read it in a day. That's fantastic. It's not that short a book. It's like 320 pages. But Arthur consumed the book quickly, gave it 5 stars. There is still some Kindle formatting problems. Good luck. God bless. Are there really some formatting problems? Can I reveal right here just for you and I? You know who did the formatting for my book for me? My buddy Kurt Schlichter. I'm not lying. So I will talk to Kurt about that. I don't know where the formatting problems are. He's done this for 8 different books. I have never done it before. So he did it for me. But I'll talk to him. I mean, I'll talk to the team. I'll talk to the team at the publishing house about it. But thank you for the review. If you guys have read my book, I would appreciate a review on Amazon for it. I really do appreciate that. It's been a really busy week here with the news cycle and stuff going on. So it's been hard for me to be on top of the book promotion, but I do appreciate all this for you guys again. All right, are we done, Kevin?
Yes, sir.
Busy day. And the day keeps getting busier. Still work being done in Washington, D.C. Keep an eye on all the town hall sites and check out all the video clips that Kevin's on top of and the whole team there at Town Hall is on top of so you can be up to speed on what's going on in your nation's capital. And again, our prayers for everybody affected by the horrific plane crash in Washington last night. Truly, we are praying for you, your families, and for the souls of the dearly departed. Thanks for watching today. My name is Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.